See Red Nation, what is good, Bears fans? We got dual news to talk about. It's so much news going on the channel today. We've got to start this thing off by getting into the Chicago Bulls, how they're affected by this Donovan Mitchell trade. Are they affected at all? I put a post on Twitter talking about how I don't know how this whole thing is going to work, but we'll see at the end of the day. And then also got to look at, should the Bulls be looking at some players that hey, listen, they still got some guys over there that might be interesting to see if the Bulls still wanted to spend some money and go get them. And then of course, you already know we're going to get into those Bears pressers and give a little reaction to what the Bears have done to this point in the season. We've got all that and more in today's episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Appreciate you guys from showing love. I need some C-Reds in the chat. I need some Bear Dons in the chat. Let's go. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us for another episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. If you're C-Red Nation, drop the C-Red. If you're here for the Bear Dons, drop the Bear Dons. If you're here for both, let's drop them both, because Chicago, we got conversations to have on this mug, man. Appreciate y'all for showing love. As always, man, if you haven't done so, hit that like button, subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talks, so make sure that you get in tune with us, man. So let's just get this thing started off, bro. Let's just get this thing started off, because a serious trade comes down the pipeline. As we heard from Adam Schefter, Donovan Mitchell has been traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm sorry, I said Adam Schefter. Adrian Wojnarowski. Y'all know I've been talking Bears for a minute because the Bulls content is quieted down a little bit, but we're back on it, man. From Adrian Wojnarowski, that Utah is acquiring in this trade quite a bit for Donovan Mitchell. Let me go here. Boom. There we go. Here's the full trade details for you. Utah's trading Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Larry Markkinen, who's interesting enough, going to be getting another shot at being the starting power forward on a team, and hopefully gets his shot at being a dominant player. Ochai Agbaji, Colin Sexton, 3 unprotected first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. Now, we do know what those pick swaps are at this point, but the question on the table is, how does this affect the Chicago Bulls? How does this affect the Bulls moving forward? What is going to be the outcome of this whole thing? And here's my thing with it, right? The biggest question mark that I have on this entire thing: what about Donovan Mitchell is different than what they could have had with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland working together? And I know there was a lot of people that were like, bro, you can't believe that Darius Garland and Colin Sexton and Donovan Mitchell are the same player. I'm not saying that they're the same player, but what I am saying is that you gave up a lot of capital for 2 pieces, or to trade a piece that is very similar to the piece you already had in the building. By the way, a piece that we saw not work as well versus this or together with Darius Garland. And so to me, right, I look at this and say, okay, now what about this is going to be different than when Colin Sexton was in the building? What about this is going to be different than when Colin Sexton was playing the game? I understand Donovan Mitchell comes in, you're going to run him at the 2 guard, but Donovan Mitchell didn't have a great 3-point percentage playing the 2 guard last season, right? I mean, he was 35% from the field, I believe, from the 3-point line, I believe, and he was taking about 10 3-pointers a game. Now, is it going to change his shot selection? Is it going to change what he's going to be able to do? Is it going to change? I don't know how they're going to work the system into this whole thing, right? And I think that does play into it, so you have to take that into account. But for me, right, like, I just look at this and I don't instantly go, oh my God, the Cavaliers are going to be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. The same way I didn't instantly go, oh my God, the Atlanta Hawks are going to be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference the second that this trade was made. Here's the thing that I like the deal. I like the move. I think that it's a good move on both parts. But at the same time, right, like Utah got good pieces going their way, and you got Donovan Mitchell coming back here. But at the same time, at the end of this whole thing, what is there to show us that this is going to work? What is there to show us that this is going to dominate? I still have the Bulls above the Cavaliers in my book. I understand Donovan Mitchell, the kind of player that he can be, but you also have to talk about what he's going to work into in this season. And I just don't know if all of a sudden bringing in a 6'1" shooting guard who has been a liability defensively his entire career is all of a sudden going to be the piece that puts the Cavs over the top. I would have felt the same way about this Cavaliers team had they have just kept Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton was 25 points a game last season on a better field goal percentage. I think the biggest question mark that you have with Colin Sexton is Colin Sexton going to remain healthy throughout the season? Right? Like, I feel like that's the biggest question that you have to talk about when you're talking about not Colin Sexton. Is Donovan Mitchell going to remain healthy throughout the season? That's the biggest question mark that you have to ask when you're talking about Donovan Mitchell going to the Cavaliers, right? Like, is Colin Sexton over there going to be a better player than what Donovan Mitchell is going to be? I don't know, right? Like, there's so much unknown with that. But what we have seen with Darius Garland is that he works better without that guy that goes out there and dominates the ball. And guess what Donovan Mitchell does? Donovan Mitchell dominates the ball. Donovan Mitchell dominates the ball. And so now I want to see how Darius Garland's going to play off a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Maybe Darius Garland makes him better. Maybe there is something to be said for that. But at this moment, right, if you're just talking about standings in the Eastern Conference, and you know this is what people immediately are going to run to before a game is even played, I don't all of a sudden flip all of my standings. I thought the Cavs were going to be a nice team this season anyway. I thought the Cavs were going to be one of the better teams this season anyway. Why? Because I thought the Cavs were going to move in the right direction, and they were adding back in a piece like Colin Sexton that you hope to figure out where that was going to work. And you still have Karis LeVert probably coming off of your bench now. So that's a nice piece to have in there. And because of their big men, their young big man in Evan Mobley, and the fact that they have Jared Allen on there, you saw how that changed that team. The defense of this team is run on the interior of this defense. And so for me, right, I don't all of a sudden look at this and say, I'm instantly flipping everything that I thought about the Cleveland Cavaliers just because they brought in Donovan Mitchell. Because if I look at Donovan Mitchell and I look at Colin Sexton's numbers right next to each other, and I look at the kind of players that they are, and I get it, right? We watch Donovan Mitchell more. Why? Because Donovan Mitchell makes the playoffs more often. Donovan Mitchell makes the playoffs more often. So we see Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs versus these big teams. But you can't tell me Donovan Mitchell was the guy that was making his teammates better. You can't tell me Donovan Mitchell was the guy that was putting Rudy Gobert in a position when he had Jalen Brunson guarding him in the paint to be successful. And I get it, right? Mitchell's more of a 2, but for me, at the end of the day, what are you providing to your team? What are you adding to the team? You're going to add this scoring. That scoring was already on the team. How do you fit into the system that they're trying to work? And maybe that's on JB Bickerstaff to figure out, you know what I'm saying? I think that, you know, I think that that's probably the biggest thing that you have to look at now. How's JB Bickerstaff going to handle this, having that level of star in the building, having that level of player in the building, a guy who you know can put up those shots, but does he rein him in a little bit more, right? Maybe that was on Quinn Snyder, not reining him in more. But at the end of the day, I don't look at this and say all of a sudden the Bulls are on the outside looking in when you're talking about the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. I look at this and I say, okay, I like the addition. Now, how do the Bulls counter off of that? And I think that's the other question that you really got to ask yourself, right? Like when you're looking at this Bulls team, how are the Chicago Bulls going to counter off of that? And honestly, is there something on that Utah Jazz team that is worth going to get? I think that's probably the biggest question that you have to ask when you're talking about that team, because they're going completely young. They're in a full rebuild mode at this point, and Utah has a lot of coveted pieces still on that team. When you look at kind of what they have, Woj was tweeted it out earlier. They've still got Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, who seriously catches my eye. I wonder if the Bulls could get a deal done for him. I think he's the player that you have to look at with a little bit of like, oh, okay, that's an interesting piece. Mike Conley is still there. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot of, and the thing that hurts you a little bit is you see that Utah wants more of the draft capital than the players themselves, but maybe a Kobe White coming in there, all of a sudden, right, you're able to package him with something. I don't know. I don't know if that gets it done with Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson is 6th man of the year level. I doubt a Kobe White gets it done. I think you're looking elsewhere there. But another player, right, like I feel like if I'm looking at that Utah Jazz team, that would be the piece that I would really want to go get. I don't think there's much else on there. Maybe Bojan, right? But as long as you're not giving up too much for a guy like Bojan, I think that I wouldn't be mad at a Bojan either. You know, he can knock down the shot, but the question is on him as well, right? How healthy is he going to be? But the other piece for me, right, that really catches my eye when you're talking about this Bulls team, when you're talking about what they can do to counter this. We also heard the report today that Cam Reddish has been made, or not has been made available, but is looking to get out of the Knicks organization. I think that's another spot where you have to look really, really close, because that is somebody who, comparable to what Kobe White has done, very up and down in his career, offensively, right? You don't know what you're going to get every night, but at a minimum, you're willing to take a chance. And now that's the biggest question on the Chicago Bulls, right? I think that the East is better. I do think that Donovan Mitchell being added to the Cavs puts them in a little bit of a different direction. I think it changes the mindset of your team. When you add a Donovan Mitchell to your team, you're talking about how do we get to the NBA Finals. You're not talking about how do we keep building this young team slowly along the way, right? Like that's like when the Bulls added Vooch to their team. So now the question mark is, how do the Bulls counter on that? How do the Bulls flip something that's already on that team and add another piece to this team? Or do they, right? Or do they just stand pat like we've seen? I understand that the Chicago Bulls are trying to bring this thing along with the continuity. They've got young pieces. They've got pieces that are trying to make a play. And I don't know if a trade like this all of a sudden changes your mindset on the direction you're going. But at a minimum, you see the Eastern Conference getting better and you decided to stand pat. Maybe that does put a little bit of a fire under you to try and do a little bit more. I just kind of want to see what the Bulls how the Bulls are going to attack this. But again, I'm not losing my mind on this trade. I see a lot of people just all of a sudden, right, the Cleveland Cavaliers are back. Now they're dominating the NBA again. Now they're one of the best teams in the NBA again. It's like, listen, they were going to be one of the better teams in the NBA anyway. Adding Donovan Mitchell to this team doesn't change that for me. Adding Donovan Mitchell to this team doesn't all of a sudden put them in a direction that they weren't already going. All it does is speed up the mindset of the organization that, hey, we've got to get this thing done now, just like bringing in Vooch did for the Bulls. When you brought in Vooch, when you brought in DeMar, you said, hey, we're trying to win right now, and we're trying to have pieces on this team for the future. The good thing is for the Cavaliers, right, Donovan Mitchell's 25. So you're trying to win right now. You're in a win now mode, but also you've got a lot of time to be in that win now mode. Maybe, right? Maybe, depending on if Donovan Mitchell's going to stay in Cleveland. I think that's going to be the interesting part of this whole thing, right? Like at the end of the day, does Donovan Mitchell even stick around in Cleveland? That's something to talk about for another day. But I mean, for me, if I'm talking about moves that I would like to see the Bulls make, it would be somebody like a Cam Reddish. If I'm talking about, moves that I would like to see the Bulls make to bolster their bench, it would be going after somebody like that. Maybe going to figuring out a way to go get a Jordan Clarkson, because at a minimum, right, you want to have somebody off of that bench that you can rely on to be the offense for you. You want to have somebody off of that bench that you know you can count on to be the offense for you. And right now, the best player coming off of that bench that we know at a minimum is going to be offensively inclined to put the ball in the bucket is Ayo Dosunmu, and we don't know if he's going to take that big of an offensive step here. You hope Coby White can take a step. You hope Coby White can figure it out, but Kobe's game just hasn't translated. Now, I do think having a little bit more of an off season will help Coby White. I think Coby White will take a step forward. I do think that his game will improve this season because, remember, this is the first offseason Coby White's had that he's not rehabbing something or dealing with COVID. This is the first offseason Coby White has had where he legitimately can just work on his game. And so I do think he's going to come into the NBA and be a better player, but we've got guards. We've got so many guards. We're tired of saying the word guard. How do you add to this bench and bolster this bench based off of this move? That's what you have to figure out when you're talking about this Bulls team coming into next season. I think that's a move that even during the season, you could see moves made for a guy like, okay, let's figure out how we can add a little bit more forward depth to this team. Let's figure out where we can go. And maybe it is just playing the rookies, but I think AK likes having a little bit of a sure thing as well. Let me know how you guys feel, man, in the comments. Let me check some of you guys' comments in here, man. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us as always. Windy City Vid says Cam Reddish was doing well versus us. He can play defense as well. Cam Reddish is just inconsistent. It's the same story as Coby White. It's the exact same story as Coby White. There's no difference. Levante saying the Cavs need a bigger two guard. That's the interesting piece for me, right? Like, that defense is going to be pretty bad on that Cavs team, and you're going to rely on a lot of your bigs on the inside to get the job done. Now, if Jared Allen's healthy, if Evan Mobley's healthy, right, that does help a lot. And you can go small in your front court because you know, hey, guess what? If you guys get past them, there's guys down there that can block shots left and right. So that does make a big difference for this Cavs team. I'm not tripping on that one way or the other. I just don't think that all of a sudden they're going to take this offensive leap that a lot of people think that they're going to take, right? I don't think that all of a sudden they're going to take this offensive jump that a lot of people think they're going to take, because I don't look at Donovan Mitchell as this leaps and bounds better scorer than Colin Sexton. If you look at the numbers, Colin Sexton was one of the best scorers in the NBA. He just played in Cleveland, and he was one of the best scorers in the NBA while being one of the most double team players in the NBA. So you have to take that into account as well. So I think that, like, I would have felt the same way if they were like, we're going to keep Colin Sexton and figure out how to work him into the lineup. That Cleveland team's still taking a step forward to me. What else we got in the comments, man? Cruising saying, go get Miles Turner. No, I'm very cool on Miles Turner. I'm very cool on Miles Turner. You want to talk about a bad defensive player? Block shots don't equal good defense. Block shots means I'm tall. listen. He blocked a lot of shots per game, but I'm not losing my mind on a Miles Turner. I don't know. I just look at this and I say, what are the Bulls going to go out there and have an opportunity to go get? What are the Bulls going to go out there and have an opportunity to go after? I think you're really just talking about bench pieces. I really think you're just talking about bolstering your bench depth at this point. You're not talking about going out there and getting this massive name player like they just did. But like I said, a couple of players, like Woj tweeted out, there's some coveted veterans over on Utah that you can still go get. And I like the names over there, man. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at bringing in a Bojan if it's for something small. If you find a way to get Jordan Clarkson, now you're freaky, right? Because you're talking about a bench that has Jordan Clarkson, that has Alex Caruso, that has Ayo Dosunmu, right? Like, I don't know what you would have to move to go get a guy like that. That probably would be the biggest question. Like, maybe you're moving one of those three names that I just said. But Jordan Clarkson is a 6 man of the year candidate every single year. Jordan Clarkson has turned his entire career around, so I'm not mad at that at all. Appreciate you guys for tuning in on that, man. I mean, honestly, how are you guys feeling just about this Bulls team as a whole in the standings, right? How are you guys feeling about how this Bulls team is built based on what has changed in the Eastern Conference? That's to me a serious question. That's to me a serious question. How do you feel about what this Bulls team has versus where this Bulls team is? Marv in the comments, he said, what's up, Pat? They're a lot better, and Colin Sexton didn't play most of the year last year, so they're better, but I'm not afraid of them. I mean, Colin Sexton, when he did play with them, didn't do anything for me, and they're still the same team, right? Like I just don't see having two players that are the same working in that manner. Basically they're trying to go for the let's do what Portland did, except having better bigs, which could change everything for them. But I don't see how Garland and Sexton work well together. Battle Rap Panda, Sexton was not a top scorer. Sexton was a 25 point per game guy, my dude. Like, what is that? Colin Sexton was balling until he got hurt. Colin Sexton was a 25 point per game guy. Shay in the chat, Shay saying you can trade Kobe for Kendrick Williams and a first round draft pick from OKC. Nah, I'm okay. Chris says I'll take the Bulls over any team in the East. I don't know about that. We'll see that. Bulls should still be around the 5 spot. Okay, I'm not mad at that, right? I think they'll be a top 5 team. I think the Bulls can break into that top 4 or 3, but I mean, I could see them being a top 5 team as well. I'm not losing my mind on that. I see Cleveland and the Bulls around 50-55 wins. They're going to cancel each other out. That'll be interesting to see. If Cleveland takes that kind of jump, right? I mean, Cleveland was an excellent team last season. Defensively, Cleveland was a problem all season. I think the biggest thing with the Bulls, right, is what does a healthy Bulls team look more like? Does a healthy Bulls team look like what we saw at the beginning of the season more so, or does it look closer to what we saw towards the end of the season where guys were coming back, right? They were never really 100% healthy again, but I mean, what does that defense really look like? That's where you see if guys are going to cancel each other out. Jamoy Fowler saying, I just feel the East got deeper and our division is arguably the toughest in the league. I'll agree with that, but dog, division does not. Like, it matters, but it doesn't. Like, you got to beat the teams you beat. We all know the conference matters most. I guess if you win your division, it makes a big difference, right? But like, fam, they can do away with the divisions at this point. We do not care. What do we got going on here? James saying Kobe, DJJ, and a Portland pick for Clarkson. I mean, that Portland pick's not worth that much, dog. I think Bulls fans think the Portland pick is worth a lot more than it really is. RW Chi-Town saying this trade does not affect us at all. I don't know if I disagree with you there. I kind of had Cleveland higher in the standings anyway, so I never looked at Cleveland as a team that was going to like dominate us. I still kind of feel the same way. I guess like you've got a more exciting player, but I don't know. Hey man, if y'all haven't done so, hit that like button, man. 74 in here, only 18 likes on the video. Hit the like button, man, because we keeping this thing going. Marv saying, look guys, the Bulls are deep from top to bottom. If we stay healthy, we can compete with any team in the league. Remember, there's the thing called the trade deadline. Oh yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing to look at, right? When you're talking about how's this team going to make a move, it doesn't have to happen today. I think there's a little more urgency because you're talking about going out and possibly getting a Jordan Clarkson or a Colin Sexton or a Mike Conley or a Bojan, right? And those are guys that are a little more, okay, we got to make this move today. But if they don't go out there and make a move today, I'm not losing my mind either. I feel good about this Bulls team. I feel like this Bulls team is still one of the best teams in the NBA. From top to bottom. One of the best structured teams, one of the best built teams. And you just got to, listen, you got to have guys hit. Patrick Williams has to be a hit. Zach LaVine has to take his game to the next level. DeMar DeRozan has to be kind of somewhere around where he was. I think he could take a little bit of a step back, but you have to have other guys step up. Lonzo Ball has to be healthy. That's what this all comes down to. The guys that you have in the building have to be healthy. It's a good team, but it's not a good team if they're not healthy. And that's what it comes down to. What do we got? The Bulls, Hawks, Cavs win as much as progress is needed, and also experience the East has gotten better. 100%. 100%. Windy City Vid saying, he called me Hayes first off, but he said, Pat, what's your 100% prediction of what is our seed in the division after the Mitchell trade? There's no 100% prediction. And that's what I mean, right? Like this is before the beginning of the season. This is before anything really gets started. There is no 100% prediction. There is no major tell right now, because two things we don't know. One, we don't know how Donovan Mitchell is going to play with this team. If he plays with this team, anything like Darius Garland played with, or Darius Garland and Colin Sexton together played with this team, right? The Cavs could be right back in the spot that we were talking about them being in before, where, hey, this dynamic doesn't work and it's not going to work. And now you have to bench one of these guys or trade one of these guys because you really want this dynamic to work. And on top of that, right, if the Bulls aren't healthy, they're in a completely different spot. The biggest question mark around the Bulls team, I will say, AK went out and he addressed a lot of what we needed to address in the offseason. We needed shooters. Guess what? Goran Dragic is above 40% from behind the three-point line from everywhere. We needed rebounding. Guess what? We went and got one of the best rebounders in NBA history. But if guys aren't healthy, that won't matter. So there is no 100% prediction on where the division is. I think the Bulls will be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. I still think the Bulls will be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. I'm not sold on the Atlanta Hawks all of a sudden moving up and dominating us one way or the other. So for me, right, nothing really changed here. I get that the name is major. Donovan Mitchell is a major name around this NBA, 100%. But when you look at how efficient Donovan Mitchell is, when you look at how Donovan Mitchell has made almost none of his teammates better, when you look at how there's moments where Donovan Mitchell could pass the ball and doesn't pass the ball, like all of a sudden there's this belief that Donovan Mitchell is just going to be okay with being off ball. Donovan Mitchell wasn't off ball when Mike Conley was on the team, who was legitimately one of the better point guards in the NBA. All of a sudden, Mike Conley became a 2-guard. There's this sudden belief that Donovan Mitchell's just going to say, woo, let's go and hey, you handle the ball. I'm just going to sit out here and shoot. It's not Donovan Mitchell's game. Most of Donovan Mitchell's game is in that mid-range and at the bucket. He wants to blow past you. He wants to get you in some tough shots. He wants to put you in a position where you're fouling him. Donovan Mitchell took 10 3-pointers a game last year and knocked down 3 of them. 3.5. He shot about 35%. It's not good. It's just not good. So like I'm not losing my mind on it one way or the other. We got to see how stuff is going to work. Jeremy saying the Cavs will be just as good as Utah was, but just in the East. Can we say that Utah was dominant last year? You're literally putting Donovan Mitchell kind of in a similar position to what he was in Utah, but he's got a better 2 next to him. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Our Hunt Life saying, my problem is nobody is telling the truth about the Bulls. Every move made this offseason was an upgrade from last without losing your core pieces. I think that's a fact, right? Like, there's definite upgrades on this team. I just think the questions are those upgrades going to be utilized? We know Andre Drummond's going to be utilized. How much is Goran Dragic getting used? Right? Like if he comes in and he gives you a tight 15 minutes a game, every game, sure, I love it. But outside of that, right? Like I'm not expecting Goran Dragic to get 25, 30 minutes a game. I'm not expecting him to be this monster piece for us this season. I'm expecting him to be a nice shooter off your bench. Veteran, right, exactly. Veteran presence in the point guard room. Maybe he can tell Lonzo some secrets on keeping his knee better, right? Like, but there's nothing crazy about what we saw that I'm like, man, we're really missing out on this. there's no way we're not going to dominate next season with what we brought into the building. So I don't know. I don't lose my mind on it one way or the other, and I think that the Mitchell trade doesn't change my opinion on the Cavs in the East, because I already had the Cavs as one of the better teams in the East. I just did. J Mart in the chat, shout out to J Mart, man, Breeze super fan, said Drummond to the Bulls is still a crazy piece to add. Agreed. It's a great get. $3 million a year, 2 years, second year player option. It's a great get. It's a great get. But there's a lot of pieces outside of Andre Drummond that have to work for you to make or to dominate in the Eastern Conference. And there's a lot of pieces that AK is betting on working for the Chicago Bulls that have to hit. We still don't know if Lonzo Ball's going to be healthy. We still don't know if Lonzo Ball's our starting point guard next season, to start the season at a minimum. We still don't know if Kobe White's going to be this scorer off the bench, right? So, I think there's so many questions on both sides of this thing that, yeah, is it going to affect the Eastern Conference with Donovan Mitchell being on that team? It makes it tougher. But it already was going to be tough. It already was going to be tough. There was nothing about this season that wasn't going to be tough. The East was tough. Milwaukee's tough. Philly's tough. Brooklyn's tough. Boston's tough. Miami's tough. Cleveland was tough last year. They're going to be tough this year. The East is probably tough, the toughest division from top to bottom, and they're going to spend all year beating up on each other. And it's going to be fun to watch. But as far as how this thing finishes out, we'll see. I don't think that I don't lose my mind one way or the other on it, because when I look at what Colin Sexton could do, I think he could do a lot of what Donovan Mitchell will do on this team, and Colin Sexton was coming back to this team. If anything, I think Cleveland gave up quite a bit. You gave up a guy who I really liked coming out of the draft in Ochai Agbaji. You gave up Colin Sexton. Larry Markkinen, I like Larry. You know, I'm not going to hate on Larry. I mean, he hated on us, but I'm not going to hate on Larry. But I'll tell you one thing about that team. I bet you Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan can cook those guards. I bet you Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan can cook those guards every single time, bro. Come on now. Stop playing with them. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys tuning in and rocking with us. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talks. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. Hey, we got a lot more to get into on the show today. We had Bulls conversation. Now we gotta get into a little bit of the Bears conversation, because there was a lot of Bears news flying around here as well. So you can't just talk about just the Bulls. You got to talk about the Bears as well. Shout out to it. What Baki say? You might not hate Pat, but I'm going to hate Larry can take his trash behind to Utah. Hey, bro, Larry not trash, bro. Larry just turned his back on us. Hey, man, when the what Timon say? When the world turns his back on you, you turn your back on the world. Let's get into some of this Bears content, man. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, drop a bird down in the chat, because we got to react to this Bears presser, and we also got to talk about kind of just what moves were made, what these guys were talking about on the moves that were made, and where the Bears are heading. Do we feel confident, and what the Bears are going to bring to the field? Let me make sure that I got this going to the right input as well. Boop. Bow. Okay. All right. Cool. So let's get into this, man. Y'all don't want to hear from me. Let's hear from our GM and assistant GM. We've got an assistant GM and assistant GM, Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham at the podium, and hear what they had to say about the Bears' moves yesterday.
Our scheduling, practices, coaches, and our players have done a heck of a job, adapting to that and adjusting on the fly. And it's been awesome to see just the transformation from the first day of OTAs to that last preseason game. You could see the way that all the coaches, and especially Flus, wants this game to be played. The guys are doing it. They're finishing. They're playing aggressive. They're competing, which is really cool to see. I feel like you can feel the needle moving, and just in terms of the way we're approaching how we play the game of football. And again, that a lot of credit should go to the coaches for putting the time in. Everything we've said in the beginning in terms of being teachers, they are, and we've seen the development of a lot of players on the roster, and it's awesome to see. The other thing is just giving a lot of credit to the front office. There's been a lot of work done, obviously, over the last few days. Very few hours have been slept because we're putting work in. We're trying to do everything we can to improve this roster, and Ian especially, and then some of the other staff members, Jeff King, Trey Koziel, put a lot of time in to get us where we are today. I'll let Ian say a few things.
Yeah, I thought just to piggyback on that, what Ryan was saying with our process, it really started at the beginning of training camp, led by Jeff and C. White, in terms of assigning players from different teams for us to evaluate and watch. And then last week we really got into the draft room and felt like we were in there every single hour of every single day, just grinding tape and talking through the process and talking through the players. And we had a chance to bring in some of our college guys and introduce them to our process, which was really helpful just in terms of getting some of the refamiliarizing ourselves with the character and the background of the players coming out of college. So I thought it was a really good process, smooth, and couldn't be more thankful for the help of Mike Sandarelli and Ryan Hubley and those guys, making it an easy process in the draft room as well.
Ryan, we haven't talked to you since camp began. Obviously, a lot went down.
That's funny.
Roquan over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks. There was obviously a big gap between the number that you guys had in mind and the numbers that he had in mind. How do you explain, from your vantage point, why reaching a compromise was so difficult?
Yeah, I feel like I hit on that when I popped in after that family day, when everything was going down, and we're in a place now, and I think Roquan he said it perfectly. We've shifted gears and it's all ball now, so it really doesn't make sense to go back and go through all that. And the one thing, he doesn't get enough credit for being able to change gears like that and going out and just playing football and doing it the right way. And I'm proud of him for handling that way. And he's out there, and we're better because of that. So, I really don't want to go back into the whole contract thing.
Just a follow-up, he did use some pretty sharp language in saying things were distasteful and that you weren't negotiating in good faith. How do you address the relationship part of this thing going forward, knowing that obviously you guys have to do some repair in that regard?
Yeah, I think that's it's human nature. When things happen and two sides don't agree on something, it's going to take a little time to do that, and I got a lot of faith that that's going to happen, and I'm excited for him.
Ryan, do you think what gives you optimism, or what is your cause to believe that you can work that out long term with him, that this is still a relationship that can be saved beyond this year?
Yeah, well, first of all, he's a good player, and that's never changed, and he's a good dude. So I have faith that he's going to have a good year, and we'll work on our relationship and all that. And it's not even like a bad thing either. It's just when we've all been there, right? You have disagreements, and then you got to come back together and be teammates. So that's what I expect.
What was it about Tevin Jenkins' game that you thought he was better suited, or apparently you guys think he's better suited to play guard than tackle where he was originally and played in college?
Yeah, we probably look at that more of a holistic thing than anything, and it's like, how can we make the best five? And so we did a lot of shuffling around. Everyone was aware of that. And when we got to this point and he was in that guard, I thought some good things happened on the field during some of the games. So I'm happy for him. And again, that's part of that change I talked about. That's difficult. Guys got shuffled around and moved up front, in the back, and we are trying to find our best five, and you know, the way we got to that Cleveland game, we felt pretty good about it. So I'm really happy for him and the progress that he's made, and you know, he's settling in well, and I think he's going to help us there.
When we talked to Tevin after making the team, he said he was still worried about being traded. Should he be?
Should he be traded?
Should he be worried about being traded?
I had a good conversation with him, and I told him how proud I was of him. And you know, again, I think it's about building the best five, and I think we have a good five with him at guard. So I think it's good for us to have Tevin at guard right now.
In the draft a year ago, you guys had a pretty clear directive in Kansas City to look at the offensive line. What was your evaluation of Leatherwood in that moment? And why do you think that a player who the Raiders had no use for can thrive here?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is going back, talented player, physically gifted for sure, prototype in his size and movement. And then in terms of like success with him here, I think we all believe in player development here, and we've put pieces in place to allow players to be their best selves. So we're going to approach that in many different ways, and we're going to give them an opportunity to develop and grow. Hey, like, forget the draft pick thing. Like, that's over. So let's start from the ground floor. Let's build you up and take your time, and whatever that is, we want to put them in the best position to succeed. And Chris Morgan and his staff, you know, and everyone around from the weight room, you know, we're going to give it everything we got.
Is he a tackle?
I think he has ability to play multiple positions, which again is a huge benefit.
Where do you want to get your first look at him? Tackle or guard?
It doesn't matter. I mean, you've seen how we've shuffled people around on the O-line, so wherever he settles in, that's what we'll do. I trust the coaches to go ahead and have a process for that, and I look forward to it. As soon as we get out of here, I'm going to go run and see what he looks like.
Obviously, by claiming him, you have to keep him on the 53. How do you envision that playing out over the coming weeks as he tries to get up to speed with the offense? I mean, when can he be in a position where he can potentially at least provide depth on a game day?
Yeah, it's hard to tell right now. I mean, he flew in super late last night, had a physical, and just got out there, so it's hard to really do that.
Ryan, how do you evaluate what you've seen from Justin, through camp and then through the three preseason games, especially that last one where he kind of looked like he was clicking?
Yeah, I think there's progress being made. He looks comfortable. I think before, again, I kind of talked about this, but like his technique and his fundamentals and his feet, like then the new offense, new coaches, new system, there's a lot going on both physically and mentally. So I thought as the preseasons played out and even practice, you could see things start to slow down and him read defenses quicker and pull the trigger, and it was really cool to see him finish up that way.
Ryan, as an extension of that, you talked obviously in the opening about the trust in your coaches. I'm curious what you've observed about the connection between Justin and Luke and how that's kind of evolved in the 4 or 5 months that they've had together.
Yeah, no, they have a good connection. Their communication's really good, so I've been pleased with that.
Do you think the third preseason game that Justin Fields, for him, that was a turning point at all?
With the preseason, I don't think you don't want to like overvalue preseason. You don't want to undervalue. It's like somewhere in the middle. So it was positive, so we'll take that, and let's just see, the lights are going to come on, and it's going to be real, and they're going to count. So we'll see from there, but I'm happy with the progress.
Ryan, Matt Eberflus said the other day just about the receiver depth. He felt good with where they're at, but even he noted that there were 3 healthy guys practicing. How comfortable are you just knowing that you do have injuries right now, and are you comfortable like rolling that group out there, expecting that they might be able to return for week 1?
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that in the next few days and whenever they're going to get out there and we'll have more of a full unit.
Do you think you still need to add to it? To the receiver room?
We're going to be completely I've explained this before. We're going to be relentless and constantly look for talent, and we'll be aggressive when we need to be aggressive and conservative when we need to be conservative, but we're always looking to get better.
What gave you the confidence that you guys could help N'Keal Harry when he's coming from a very reputable organization and it didn't work out? What made you think that you guys could make that work? And what is a realistic timetable for when he could be back?
You want me to
No one's asking you questions.
Yeah, nobody. We're just happy with the player that Nikhil is, what he showed. In
I love that he's like,
college.
nobody's asking you nothing. Answer
You know,
something.
once he gets healthy, the main thing is just getting him healthy and back on the field. What he showed when he was in practice during training camp, physical specimen, strong at the catch point. It's just unfortunate that the injury happened, but we look forward to getting back on the field.
And when do you think that will be?
It's hard to tell right now.
Yeah.
We have the designate to return on him, so we gotta wait a few weeks, and then when he's healthy, we'll get him out there.
Ryan, what have you seen of Matt Eberflus throughout the course of training camp, the offseason program, that gives you confidence in your head coach?
Yeah, I love that dude. Like, you go to meetings. Well, first of all, the schedule and everything. He is detailed. He's organized. He has a team around him to help him be organized. He's consistent. His message is clear. There's no gray area. When he approaches the team meetings and gets in front of the guys, he's got juice, but it's not fluff. It's not fake. It's real, and you can feel that energy that he has. And the guys love it. I love it. I'm so pumped about his leadership and how he's handled this team.
Ryan, it's obviously your objective to win every game that you play, but at this stage in the process, how will you measure success this season? Is there some quantifiable metric that you have in mind for what that looks like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I got asked a question, I forget when it was, but it was like, if you take wins and losses out of it, like, how do you measure success? What would be success? And my answer was resilience. And it's a team, because again, I've been on teams Super Bowl teams and teams, anywhere in between. And the teams that can just stay level and look at what are the solutions instead of just pointing at the problem, right? And being negative and like, look at that, like, it's not good. No, how are we gonna fix it? So as an organization, as a team, as a locker room, as a staff, like, just being resilient through the ups and downs and just continue to fight and have that arrow pointing up. That was my response to that, and that's kind of how I feel.
Ryan, one of the criticisms of this roster that still stands today is that in a critical year for your quarterback's development, you really haven't given him a big enough support to make him successful. So, like, if it doesn't work out, the criticism will be, well, you set him up to fail. Do you understand that? Do you get that? And why do you think that's wrong? What's your response to that?
Listen, I mean, when we're building this thing, like, that was the goal coming in, is like, try to surround him with the best talent that we can. But at the same time, I've never gotten in the way from the fact that we have to build the entire roster. And I'm not going to overreach and do things crazy to get a name or anything like that. So our approach has been consistent from the draft all the way through. We're going to continue to add talent all around, the best that we can. It may not be the name or a name that everyone wants to hear, but we're going to develop the players that we have here. We're going to continue to fight to make that the best unit we can. Mooney's balling right now. I'm excited about him. That's going to help Justin. I'm excited about Cole. I think our protections and our O-line's gotten better. Some of the guys have been a little dinged up, right? So it's hard to see everything. But when they get back, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Velas coming in and making plays and being a factor that can do different things and bring speed. So I understand that. To do it all right away, like, that's hard to do with some of the resources that you have, right? So over time, we're going to continue to do that. That's always in our head, is to put our quarterback in the best situation.
You said the protections are better. How confident are you that they'll be good enough?
Yeah, we're going to see when the lights come on. I think through preseason, they have gotten better. That's a preseason. We're going to see when the lights come on, and we'll continue to adjust, and we'll do everything we can to make that unit better and everything around him better.
What are you guys seeing in Cole right now? What strikes you about the camp he's had and really the progression he's had?
Yeah, I'd say the confidence, just seeing him coming out and watching tape last year, and he seems to be enjoying himself, having fun. He's got a large catching radius. He's stacking days together, and that's the cool thing about him, and just seeing his maturation and his confidence show out there.
When you were scouting and eventually drafted Braxton Jones, was it that at that point that you guys had circled him as a potential starting left tackle, or did he come in and surprise you guys and say, oh, he's much more advanced than we thought?
Yeah, so we thought he definitely had starter potential and he could develop. I've been blown away by how fast he has developed. I think that there's a lot of credit for our coaches and Chris Morgan, and they've done an excellent job, and he continues to kind of check the boxes. You go from OTAs, like, hey, that guy looks pretty good. And then you go to, all right, but we got to go to training camp. We got to put pads on. Put pads on. Still does pretty good. All right, let's see when the lights come on and go to preseason. Is he going to do it then? Does it get, because the longer you do this, and you've all seen, you see these spikes, and then like, where did he go? You know, and he just continues to climb and get better and better and better. And then now that next phase is week 1, he's going to see a big dog, you know? So, and I told him too, there's going to be ups and downs. And I think part of being a really good player is the short memory. Like, how can you overcome some of those bad plays? That's going to be the next step for him. And just seeing, you know, those top rushers in this league, it's no joke. A lot of guys struggle with them. But can you battle? Can you fight? And have that short memory when things go bad? And do you have the toughness to stick in there? So I'm excited for him. And I'm excited for what he's become. He has not given that spot up. And he just keeps fighting and fighting and fighting. So I'm proud of that kid.
As an offensive lineman, do you believe?
The offensive lineman, too.
Both of you, as offensive linemen, do you believe in the idea that you need to gel as one of 5 and that it takes, you know, time on the field together to get there? And how do you balance that with trying to get the best 5 on the field and there being moving parts almost this, you know, until 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think as an offensive lineman and former offensive lineman, it does matter, right, to be out there and play with your teammates and gel. I do think the room matters too, right, and the depth matters. So versatility on the back end, you can never have too many offensive linemen, and then being in that room, bonding together, out on the practice field, we have a great group, and then all of that matters.
If you had to change your approach at all, dealing with like the emotions of the players, whether it's Roquan representing himself, I mean, more and more guys are going to do the same thing, or Tevin being the subject of, you know, trade talk. Have you had to change an approach, or has it made you, you know, pay attention more to the emotions of the guys?
Yeah, I feel like paying attention to the emotions of the guys, it's a real thing. I think I do a decent enough job to put myself in their shoes and understand why their emotions are there. So I think my reaction to that of not getting upset or like all over the place, I think has been fairly good. But also I think, you know, I can just always communicate better. I think we all could just communicate better, be more clear. And I think that's been pretty good, but there's always room to improve, I guess.
Ian, what's your evaluation of Tevin Jenkins? Just how his story is kind of, like, how does it resonate with you, him taking over the right guard spot after being out a little bit?
Resilience, right? He had up and down early part of his career just with the back injury, coming from Oklahoma State, getting in here, and then early in training camp this year, another injury, and then for him to come in and then play guard, a position that he wasn't as familiar with, it's just a testament to the kid, right? And his resilience and his work ethic. Couldn't be more proud of him.
How about Larry Borum? He's not discussed as much, and he's your starting right tackle.
Yeah.
Guy. What has he done to win that job, in your guys' opinions?
Shoot, I mean, we came in and we had to lose some weight, right? We had to the scheme was going to change. He did that, and he was locked in, and he's been more and more consistent as we've gone along. He's another one we're proud of. You know, how about Sam Mustapher stepping in and doing a pretty good job at center as well? That's another guy. He's just gritty, it's tough. Like you saw, Justin took that hit. Like those guys, they're getting it, right? They're stepping up when they need to, and they're protecting their guy, and they're bringing that mentality that we want to see.
And with Riley Reef coming in, I mean, you just think like the timing of when he was signed, a veteran with that much experience, that he'd come in and be a starter right away. But obviously, it hasn't panned out that way. Do you look at it as, you know, are you happy that some of the younger guys maybe outperformed some of the veterans that you brought in, like Riley Reef?
So I think the big thing there is, you know, he comes in and what he offers that room is a ton of experience and leadership, and you can feel that. He is engaged and helping those guys constantly, but he's also preparing himself to be ready if his number were to be called or to be the guy. And he was open-minded with that. We're open-minded with that. We're excited to have him. I think he's a huge asset to the room.
You obviously have to keep one eye beyond 2022 as you're building this thing. And
we're hitting the road. We got 3 games this week we're going to.
But in addition to college, it's some of your own guys, right, that you have to figure out how they fit in your plans.
Future.
with David Montgomery specifically, what do you want to see in this season, and how do you kind of figure out how to value that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I love David. So there's a different scheme, and just seeing him approach that, he had a nice start with the preseason game, but really just fitting into that new scheme, zone scheme, and just attacking and being productive and consistent and dependable. I think that's what we look for every player.
Did your philosophy on that specific position evolve during your time in Kansas City? There were a lot of different ways that you guys did it when you were with the Chiefs, with guys that had big contracts, guys that came in and played on rookie deals and then went elsewhere.
Not really. I mean, we just want to be productive, and then we'll kind of handle the business part as we go.
With Robert Quinn, there would seem to be a lot of factors that could have made him a trade candidate, a guy that you, as you were trading other guys like Khalil Mack, for example. Why has it been important for you to keep him here?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Robert Quinn. He's been productive. The one thing, and it's not saying that Khalil wasn't, but for Robert, he brings one of those examples of what Matt wanted to see out of his defense, and being relentless, high motor. That's that guy. And again, another leader in the room that can show the young guys the way, and he's been doing a really good job at that.
That's more valuable to you than whatever you could get through cap savings or draft assets coming in.
Yeah, and that's that balance of, there's just, I think, a misconception. It's like, tear this down and rebuild it all. It's not that. There's also a feel for the room. It's how can you make the room better? How can you stay, productive and win ball games? And I think he helps us with that.
Brian, you targeted Ogunjobi in free agency and ended up with Justin Jones. How do you feel about the way that has played out, and how close has Jones been to giving you what you expected from Ogunjobi?
Yeah, I'm excited about Justin. Justin's another, one of those leaders in the room, and he's got a high motor. He's been productive, and I'm excited, to see him this year and be the guy that we think he can be.
Can he give you what you thought you were going to get from Ogunjobi, though?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Ryan,
With Kyler Gordon, at what point in the kind of process? I mean, you obviously played inside at Washington. How did that kind of come together from your guys' perspective, and what have you liked about what he's brought to you inside?
Yeah, his skill set to me, it travels both inside and outside, and he's done a really good job. I think it's just, it's like the O-line and anywhere else. Getting the best three in your sub package is important, and I think he's proven that he can do that. And it's, athletically, the twitch, the quickness, and also the instincts are a huge part of that.
I'll touch on that real quick, just with Kyler. His balance is uncanny, and his movement, his ball skills, to be able to do that inside and out is tremendous. I think he's going to be a really good player for us.
Ryan, since you've got here, it's been hitting the ground running, a lot of firsts for you, this whole process from even getting to Lake Forest and now getting ready for this first regular season game. Is there a part of you that's anxious to have a game happen, see all of your work on the field in action?
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean, that's what we do it for, right? It's just making the most competitive roster possible and getting a game day and seeing how it looks, and you just continue to adapt and to change and improve where we can.
It was Ryan Poles, GM, and Ian Cunningham, assistant GM. We've got one of those now of the Chicago Bears, man. A lot of information in that press conference, right? You find out kind of where he stands on Tevin Jenkins. When they asked him about, okay, are you going to trade Tevin or not? He says, listen, I had a good conversation with Tevin, and that we are better with Tevin Jenkins in the starting lineup at guard. We've got a good group of guys with Tevin Jenkins in the starting lineup at guard. And I feel like that's something that you really got to look at and say, you get an understanding of what they want to build here, right? You get an understanding of where they want this team to continue to improve at. They're looking at this offensive line as the spot where they need to look at most, right? Yes, they're going to find some wide receivers, and there might be a little bit of patchwork coming into this season, but at a minimum, you feel like, okay, their main goal this season is to get it right through the trenches. We've got to figure out how to get the trenches right, because if Justin Fields doesn't have time to throw the ball, he's not going to have time to get it to that receiver, for that receiver to run his route, for you to make the right plays. And so I really like that about, I said this yesterday on the show. I think I was going to post, I think I got it ready to post. We got some clips on the way, man. Don't worry about it, man. We got stuff coming. But here's the thing that you have to look at with Ryan Poles and how he's building this team. You have to look at this and say, he might believe that Justin Fields is the kind of quarterback that can make his teammates better. That's a big difference. How do you put a guy in a position where he has the ability to make those teammates better? Well, you got to protect them. And so you heard him talking. He likes what he saw with Braxton Jones. They never thought in their wildest dreams that he was going to develop this fast, but they like what they see at Braxton Jones. They like what they see with Tevin Jenkins at that right guard position. I think those are two things that when you look at and you say, okay, this is kind of where they're focusing in at. Of course, there's some other things that are going to come into question, right? How's the Roquan thing going to play itself out? How's that going to work with this offensive line? How's that going to work? How's that going to work with this defense, right? And how they're going to continue to improve. But at a minute, does Roquan fit this system? I think that's something else that has been talked about as well. But at a minimum, right, you see, even with the guys that they're still looking at to bring in possibly, they're trying to make sure that there is a plethora of depth at that offensive line position. I think it was just tweeted out by Ian Rappaport a few minutes ago. They brought in lineman, who was it? Hold on, let me double check here. Kaleski Osmele, who was a very versatile offensive lineman. I think I'm saying his name right. If not, it is what it is. But I mean, honestly, right? Like, they're trying to bring in different, versatile, offensive linemen to stand in front of Justin Fields. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Making sure that you have that depth. Because if Justin Fields is able to be upright, maybe he's that kind of player that's going to be able to stand in there and make your team better. And then you go out and you get him his number one receiver. And then you go out and you get him his top flight weapons. And then you go out and you get him better running back, better tight ends, better. Like, that's where you look at it. That's how you look at it. If you have a guy that can make the plays, you need to protect that guy. I understand it, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers complained about his team for how many years? We don't have another wide receiver. We don't have another wide receiver. You know why they weren't getting them wide receivers? Because they were putting pieces in front of them to keep them alive. Because they know that Aaron Rodgers is a good enough player without having 7 wide receivers at his disposal that you can still win a lot of games. So that's really where you got to look at this thing and say, okay, is Ryan Poles' plan getting better? And I'll tell you this, listen, there's probably going to be some swings and misses on this offensive line. Sam Mustipher, I don't know if he's a long-term. He looked good in preseason. Mediocre players usually do, right? I don't know if he's going to be a part of this future. You know, Lucas Patrick is going to be your starter. You hope that Braxton Jones is your starting left tackle. I don't know if Cody Whitehair is a long-term part of this offensive line. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably where you're trying to see what's going on with Alex Leatherwood in that situation. So for me, right, I'm looking at all those things and I'm saying, okay, well, if that's the case, if that's what you're trying to build here, then how are you going to do that? Hey, we got to keep finding guys that are going to be able to keep Justin alive. That's the piece that does the most for you on a consistent basis. And it seems like the Chicago Bears get that. So I'm not upset at that at all. We did get our first comments as well from Alex Leatherwood. He was talking about kind of where he prefers to line up, right? Like, I feel like that's something important that you have to talk about with him, because where's he going to play on this team? Do you feel like the Raiders didn't use him well? Those are all important things to talk about, man. So before we get up out of here, man, let's go out to Alex Leatherwood, hear what he had to say about where he likes to line up, where he feels like he's a good fit on this team, and how the Bears hope to utilize him. I don't think it's long either. I think it's regular presser. So, yeah.
No, not necessarily, but also it's not really my concern. I'm more concerned with the future and the things that are going on here now.
What excites you most about coming?
Get lower.
Just a new opportunity. You know what I mean? I feel like what they have going on here is going to be great. You know what I mean? I'm excited to be a part of it.
From what you know about the scheme and what they ask of their offensive linemen, how do you think you can fit?
To be honest, I feel like I'll fit well. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I'm strong and fast. You know what I mean? So I feel like no matter what it is, you know what I mean, I'll just give my best effort to do it or whatever. So yeah, it don't matter what the scheme is.
What did today look like in practice for you? I know they said they're open to different positions for you. Where were you taking most of your reps?
On the right side, right tackle. So yeah, that's where I was.
Is that where you're most comfortable? Do you want to play right tackle?
I'm open to anything. You know what I mean? So yeah.
With Justin Fields behind you, it's real different than the quarterback you're coming from. Is there a challenge in blocking for somebody who can run the way he can?
I wouldn't say it's a challenge, you know what I mean? I feel like if anything, it's a help, you know what I mean? So I'm just uber excited to be able to be and work with him. So,
are you coming in here feeling like you have something to prove? Is there any of that in your mind?
No, not necessarily. I'm just here excited for the new opportunity I have, you know what I mean? And I'm going to make the most of it.
Well, how do you view the opportunity? Well, let's leave it open. How do you view the opportunity?
I view it as something positive. I'm optimistic, and I'm grateful.
How long does it take to learn a new scheme, a new offense, to be able to come in and produce?
Just all depends on how long it takes me to get the language and stuff like that. I mean, it's all ball at the end of the day, but it's just about the terminology, just getting used to it and stuff like that. So, just trying to be a student.
What was the message for Ryan Poles when you found out?
They were excited to have me here. It's a new opportunity, and yeah, I'm excited. That's pretty much it.
What was your day like yesterday? Obviously, you had to put together travel plans pretty quickly to figure out how to get here.
It was wild, of course, you know what I mean. But we ultimately we got a schedule set with like the flight and all that good stuff, and I got here maybe around like midnight, but it all worked out.
So you came directly here at midnight and then took your physical and all that?
Nah, I got here last night at midnight, and then like this morning I came and did all that other stuff. Yeah.
Is it harder to learn a new offense or learn your teammates' names?
I think the teammates' name by far, by far.
Who have you kind of latched on to? Like who's come to you?
This is my first day here.
Yeah, right.
This is my first. I mean, like everybody's very like.
Bruh, I respect that. Why you asking him that already? Like he been here for 8 hours.
So, yeah, just everybody.
You had Coach King in Las Vegas. What was it like to kind of reunite with him? Does that kind of help with the familiarity of having him around?
Yeah, cool. Because he was a great assistant at the Raiders, so it's always great to see a face that you've seen before and stuff like that. So yeah.
Do you know anybody? Do you know any of these guys from?
Yeah, I know a couple people.
Is there anything you want Bears fans to know about yourself?
You said what?
What do you want Bears fans to know about yourself?
I don't know. Great question. I'll be here to give my best effort, and hey, I'm committed to this organization and this city. So, bear down.
That was Alex Leatherwood, man. Shout out to him. Welcome to the city, brother. It's going to be interesting to see, right? He's another guy where you're talking about how does he fit into the scheme? How does he fit in with the system? There's a ton of questions around him. But again, that low risk, high reward, you got to like the fact that Poles is bringing in these guys where he's saying, hey, maybe he can turn into something. Maybe he was played out of position. That pause was huge, though. That was a big hesitation there, Steve-O. So here's the thing again, right? Like, Is he going to be playing out of position again? Like, where is he comfortable at? Is he a left tackle all of a sudden? Is he a left guard? Like, we got to find that spot for him where he feels the most comfortable, because the one thing that the Bears continue to do is play guys out of position. And I think that was the Bears' biggest liability on a consistent basis. Tevin Jenkins gets drafted as a right tackle. What do? We're going to turn him into our left tackle. How's that work? How about you let him play the position he knows and you go find somebody that can play that position? But I think, right, like when you look at what Ryan Poles is trying to do, young offensive linemen, young foundation, young bodies all around this team, he understands what it's going to take for this team to start to move in the right direction. And I feel like he's the first person who understands it for a long time, because we've never had a GM. We've had kicker competitions. We've had QB competitions. We've had wide receiver competitions. We've had tight end competitions, but we've never legitimately had offensive line competitions, because it was a situation in case of best case scenario, this guy doesn't suck as bad as that guy sucks. Best case scenario, this guy doesn't suck as bad as at this position as bad as he sucked at that position. Like, we're coming into a season where finally you feel like the Bears understand how modern football works. Hey, if you protect your quarterback, good things can happen for you. And we'll see if that's what ends up happening, man. We'll see if that's what ends up being the outcome of this team, if that's where this Bears team ends up actually having some successes this year on the offensive line. I feel like they're going to be a lot better this season on the offensive line than last season, but let's hope that we're all right on that, man. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with your boy for another episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. We'll be back tomorrow, a week after this one. So this is the last week that we'll be off schedule. Going into next week, we're going to be setting up a legitimate schedule. We'll be live at the same time every day. You will have to look at this beautiful face. And we'll also have a specific podcast where there will also be, all of the guys on it, just for timing and sake like that. So next week, be on the lookout for that announcement. I will go live at the time that we'll be setting, and then we'll just keep it going from there. If there's adjustments coming in the schedule and stuff like that because something major comes up, we'll make that move based off of that. But hey, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us, man. We have so much fun stuff coming for you during the season, during the basketball season, during the football season. We're working on a bunch of different things for deals and stuff like that, a bunch of things where we can give away merch on the channel and different things like that. So a lot of things in place. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing so much love. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bears and Bulls content. Click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Peace.